Hi, I'm Carter, and today I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to read sheet music. The first thing we need to do before we get into how to read it is actually understand which keys go to which notes in the music. And that's pretty easy to do. There's 8 letters of keys going from A to G. And even though you would think it goes in alphabetical order, it actually kind of jumps around a little bit. So hang on and I'll try to explain as best as I can. The note we usually start on and is the easiest key to start learning is C, which is this one. You can see it right here. It's between these 2 black keys and it's the second one of these white keys. And then the next white key is D, E, F, G. And then instead of going to H like we would in the alphabet, we actually go back to A, and then B, and then C. And if you notice, obviously these 2 are the same note but at different higher lowness. So even though it seems a little weird to think about, you got to think about it as going from C to G in alphabetical order, and then back to A and B, and then it loops back around to C. It's like a loop of 8 notes, but usually we start on C. So let's get into some of these symbols that you see on the sheet right here before we get into the notes and the rests. So that line I just drew is pointing to the treble clef symbol. That means that whatever is in those lines and spaces on this side of the page will be where your right hand plays. And that other symbol I just pointed a line to is the bass clef. So these spaces and lines will show where your left hand will play. So these 2 numbers I just drew a bracket around are called the time signature of the piece, and they represent some of the other aspects of the piece. The top number represents how many beats are in each measure, and the bottom number represents what kind of note is given one count or beat in each measure. I'll go over exactly what that means in a minute. So now that we know what those symbols mean, it's time to get into exactly what parts of the sheet music represent which notes. So each line and each space on this sheet music actually represents a different note. And there's a couple pretty handy devices I like to use to remember which ones mean which. So for the treble clef, the spaces are F, A, C, and E, as you can see there. And the way I remember it is just by the word face. So as you go up, it goes F, A, C, E, which spells face. The lines there are E, G, B, D, and F, which I use the device Every Good Boy Does Fine to remember as well. You can also just kind of figure that out because of the way that we talked about earlier with how it goes back around in the pattern, but I always find the devices to be helpful. So for the bass clef, where your left hand is, the spaces are a little different there. They actually mean different notes, but there's their own devices to help remember those as well. So the spaces here are A, C, E, and G, going from the bottom to the top, which I like to use the device All Cows Eat Grass to remember. And then the spaces in between are G, B, D, F, and A, which I like to use the device Good Bicycles Don't Fall Apart to remember. And again, similar up top, you can use that idea of the 8 notes cycling back around to remember, but the devices are always helpful as well. So what happens when we want to play a note that doesn't lie on any of these lines or spaces? For instance, there's a C between the A and the bass clef and the E and the treble clef that we don't have a line for right now. What we usually do is we'll draw our own line below the line or above the line of whichever one we want to play. So if we want to play a C with our right hand, we'll draw a line below the E. That line will mean C, and then the space between will mean D. Same thing if we want to play above. If we want to play above our F on the right hand, we draw a line that means A, and the space between those 2 will mean G. The same goes for the bass clef. If we want to play the C that's above our A there, we'll draw a line and we'll put a note at C on that line, or if we want to play a B, we'll put a note in that space above the line A. Same thing goes for below. If we want to play the E below our lower G on the bass clef, we'll put a line there for E. The space between will mean F. So now that you know that, it's important that we understand how long to hold each note. And the way we do that is based on how the notes are drawn and the time signature. So in this case, our time signature is represented by 4/4, which means that we have 4 beats per measure between those vertical lines, and a quarter note gets 1 beat of weight. A quarter note looks like this. It's got a filled-in interior and a line coming up from it, or in the bass clef, the line will be going down. And it's worth 1 beat of weight out of our 4 beats. So naturally, to fill in our 4 beats, if we have each one worth 1, we'll need 4 quarter notes to fill in our measure. Sometimes there's 3/4 time where the 3 is the top number and you only need 3, but in this case we have 4, so we'll need 4 to make the rhythm 1, 2, 3, 4. to make your full measure worth of 4 beats. Another example of notes we can use are eighth notes, which are worth half of a beat each. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. So we need 8 eighth notes to make a full 4 beats because each one is worth 1/2 of a quarter note. And we draw them kind of like this. Sometimes they'll be by themselves with the horizontal line, not connected to another note, or if we connected them, we'll make them connected with those horizontal lines on top. I drew those too big, so let me scale them down, but because we have 4 beats in our measure, we'll need 8 eighth notes to fill out those 4 beats. Another kind of note we have is the half note. These look like quarter notes, except for if you notice, the inside of the note is white and not filled in, whereas in the quarter notes, it's filled in. And these notes are each worth 2 beats. So in a 4/4 measure, we need 2 of them to make our 4 beats because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And our last type of note we're going to go over is a whole note. These look like little circles there with the hollow interiors, and these are worth 4 beats each. So we only need 1 of them to fill a 4/4 measure because they take up 4 beats. The final thing to go over is rests. Rests are symbols in the music that let us know that we are not playing at that certain point, or that we don't play for a certain amount of beats. And just like notes, there are different kinds of rests to indicate how long you should stop playing on that hand. So that is an eighth rest. It has the same weighting as an eighth note. So we would need 2 eighth rests to equal 1 beat. So as you see there, we have 2 eighth rests for the first beat, and then we have our 2, 3, and 4 as quarter notes, so that's a full 4 beats in our measure. We also have quarter rests, which mean you don't play for 1 beat. It's just like a quarter note, it has the same weight as that. So in this case, we would need a quarter rest and then 3 quarter notes to make our 4 beats to fill in our measure. We also have half rests, which it's important to note are on top of the line, like little hats. I'll tell you later why this is important. And these are 2 beats of rest, so they mean the same as a half note. So in this case, to get our full 4 beats in our measure, we would need a half rest and 2 quarter notes to make our 1, 2, and then our 3 and our 4 for a full 4 beats. And finally, we have our whole rests, which are put under the line. They look like half rests, but they're under the line. They're not like hats like the half rests are. And these are full 4 beats of rest. With this information, you should have a pretty good grasp of the concepts needed to read basic sheet music. I wish you the best of luck in your sheet music reading adventures, and I hope you enjoy the music you learn.